Alright, how's it going, everybody? I automated a higher level Crucible, and I figured I would show this off for anybody that's trying to automate like tungsten steel, tungsten carbide. This is the setup that I'm going to use for it. I'll also use it for any alloy that is above 2500. I'll use this as well. It's not as efficient as using this. You obviously could use it for anything that's lower as well, but it's not as efficient because of the density of the Crucible. The tungsten burning box we're using is 100%, so that's fine. But basically, we're making tungsten steel here. There's a gas tungsten burning box down here. For the most part, this is the same setup as any of these. So if you want to see the actual building and setting up and how I do all of the settings, I'll put a link up here in the corner in one of the cards to one of the build videos for one of these. I'm just going to kind of quickly explain it in this one and why we do certain things the way we do. So I'm using THC, tantalum hafnium carbide, because of the higher tier metals that are tungsten or higher, or can smelt tungsten or higher. This is the least dense, so therefore it's the most efficient. It is also the highest temperature. You can smelt just about anything that you need to smelt in this. The only thing I can think of that might not work is adamantium. Adamantium is, 14,500. You're not smelting that in here. But pretty much everything else you can do in this. Any regular base element you can do in here, so you can do all of the base metal alloys in here. There's no reason why you couldn't, if you wanted to, set up a smaller version of this as well for any of the higher tier metals, just changing it out for the tungsten burning box and the THC crucible and molds. I'm pouring everything as ingots because we have our rolling machines over here. I can roll everything out. And for things like gears, we have extruders. I can just extrude them. Or I can come back to my regular handheld one. Well, not handheld, but my manual one, hand operated, I guess, and re-smelt it into things like that. So this is just for making the tungsten steel, and then it'll be processed later. But basically, you have two hoppers. The second hopper is to get the upper hoppers away from these, so you're not getting an errant signal from somewhere else. And make sure, depending on which way you want to do this, that if you want to do what we have set here to do, which is one tungsten and one steel for 2 ingots at a time, that you use a lead hopper on the bottom to choke your input into the crucible. If you'll notice, that's the way I have all of them but that one. And that is because you need to have a 2-slot or higher hopper for the top one. That way, when the redstone signal comes in here, both materials can get put into their own individual slot here, but then they will fall one at a time through the one slot hopper into the Crucible, turning off the redstone signal and stopping them from putting out a second one. We had a moment where I was using 2 bronze ones and couldn't figure out why I was getting double batches until Yoshi pointed out the fact that I was using bronze instead of lead when all the rest were using lead. Because it's been so long since I've actually come up with those designs, I forgot the whole reason why they were 2 different hoppers. And, but it now does 1 single batch, so 2 at a time. But with this setup, you can run a double batch, even without 2 extra outputs. It runs just fine. So you could do that. You could probably also run higher batches if you wanted to put in more molds. There's no reason why you couldn't run a 16 batch, fill up the Crucible completely, and then have 16 molds coming out. You would need to make sure in that case that you pour all 16 at one time, or at least half, because I know this setup will work as it is currently with a double batch and the ingot molds having to pour twice. I do not know if it'll go any higher than that, because I prefer it with the single batch the way it is right now, because it's not having to heat up further than what it needs to for the second batch. By the time, right there, those just left. So by the time it's ready to pour the next one, the molds are ready and they can drop in. Any extra heat that's put into that Crucible will be wasted. It's not needed. So the quicker you can get it out, the better. And also, the longer that it's in there, the longer it's being heated, the longer it's going to take to get it to pour. And you may end up with issues if you try to do too large of a batch without enough output. So whatever you decide to run, make sure you have that many molds to pour whatever it is you're doing. But to finish explaining this, these hoppers are on exact, let me turn here so you can see it, emits exact stack size of 1, and that is for both of them. We have a weight-o-meter. This is a light one. It doesn't really matter which one you use. It just needs something to weigh 0. So it is set to equals mode, set to 0, because we just want to know when it's empty. And then that comes up here via this red alloy wire with torches on each one pointed at the hoppers. That's what turns them on and off. They are off 90% of the time. They only pulse quick enough to drop one thing out of this stack into this hopper and into the Crucible. This one on the front here is your emergency or end of batch shutoff. If anything goes wrong, or when you run out of material up here, the temperature will go up. It will get to greater than 4300. It'll put out a redstone signal here, which is running through this block and into that redstone wire right there, and into the piston, which will raise the glass and shut off the Crucible. And then on the back here, this is where we actually need to pour at, which is 2870. So anytime it is greater than 2870. Redstone comes out into this wire here, which is ran over here. I have covers on here to make it look nicer. And now I gotta re-chisel my cover. And then into this one, which is putting the redstone signal into the crossing, which is then going into the two molds. And you can see this is set to on and redstone, so it will only try to pour when it has a redstone signal, and then it will auto pour, because the steel heats up fast, well, faster than the tungsten, so you have to get it poured that way. Now let me go down underneath, and we can take a look at how the underneath is. So here you can see that red wire coming out over and up into that crossing. This is where we're supplying our fuel, which is just natural gas. And then this is where the automatic shutoff comes through this block, just to save on one red alloy wire and the 3 plates it would take to make it look like a block. You can just run it through the block and then into a sticky piston to move the glass. Then under each one of the molds is just another lead hopper going into my aluminum chest. You don't have to use a GregTech metal chest for that. Vanilla chests do not burn. They will cause fire next to them if it was placed up here on the surface, because it's down in the floor, it wouldn't spawn fire adjacent to it. Hence why I still have wooden one over here for my steel, because I never bothered to change it when I changed all of these to bronze. But I do believe that that is the entire build. As you can see, it's working really nice. I'll be using that to make a multi-block shredder and other things. Like I said, you can use it for tungsten carbide or tungsten steel. We're doing tungsten steel right now. There's other ones that would need 3 inputs, so you'd have to do it a little bit different. But this works good for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully it helped you out. Remember that the a walkthrough of this build is already on the channel, and I'll have a card up here for you if you need a walkthrough of how everything is set up. It'll just be building one of these. You'll just have to change out the materials that are used. Have a good one.